everybody, and welcome to the Lowcountry Book Club Book of the Month discussion. I'm here with Susan Zurenda, and the two Southern Susans are going to talk about Elin Hilderbrand's Swan song, and then we're going to have some lunch. And Susie has prepared this lovely lunch for us, some salads, some chicken salads, some fruit salads, some orzo salad. I'm very excited about all this. So we're at her house today for a change, and we're going to talk about the book, and just, I guess, to, before we pause for eating and all that, we both enjoyed the book, but we came at it from different perspectives. So now, I have been reading Elin Hilderbrand for a couple of years, but not, I didn't read her until
long term.
No, not long term. Maybe 2 years ago, I started reading her books. And I read first the Virgin Islands series, which I really liked because I love Virgin Islands. And I enjoyed the tie-in in this book in the beginning, where Coco was in St. John in the beginning, because I know St. John, that's our favorite vacation spot.
Wonderful.
But I really enjoyed it. But I have read all the books in this Nantucket series leading up to this, so I was familiar with the characters. So my perspective on it, I think, is somewhat different from Susan's.
It is, because I'd never read an Elin Hilderbrand novel. I met her at the Kentucky Book Festival several years ago, but never met her. But I do want to go to Nantucket. I mean, I've never been up there. And boy, oh boy, I don't know if I could afford to spend one night there, but I sure would like to try.
But you know what? I think the rooms are about the same as they are in Charleston anymore.
Really?
Because in some of the inns and whatnot, because when we were there, we went there for a retreat. Some of my other friends and I went there for a retreat, and we went
That's right. I remember you telling me that.
We went to Charleston one evening for dinner, and we were at Peninsula Grill, and that's there at, what's that little inn? It's one of the really nice inns. Right. It escapes me at the moment. But anyway, I was standing there. I left my card in the restaurant the night before, and they had me pick it up at the desk in the inn.
Yes.
And I was standing there, and they were taking reservations, and they were giving a quote for rates over the phone, and it was like $1,200 a night.
Holy!
I mean, I'm like, when did
Charleston?
we get here? Yes. And so I'm thinking it's not that different from the rates they were talking about in Nantucket. I think it's high-end tourist areas, and
that is
nice,
beyond high-end.
Those nice
I mean, I thought maybe $500 a night at the fine Charleston hotels now. $1,200.
Yeah,
Whoa.
and it just depends. Some of them sure more than that, but that one, and I think a few years ago we got a good deal on one at Charleston Place, and the normal rates at that time were like outrageous. I mean, they were like close to $1,000 a night for that time. But it depends also what time of year.
Sure.
Now, see, we were in Charleston in May, and so that's that's their high season.
It is.
And
I'm
sure it's the same.
Coming.
Right.
Might have been during Spoleto.
Right. Yeah. Now, Nantucket, I've never been there. I've never been to Martha's Vineyard. I've never been to any of those northern, places. And I was trying to think why that is exactly. And I mean, I've always been drawn to southern beaches. And I think for that reason, for a long time, I didn't read Elin Hilderbrand, because I was just drawn to the Lowcountry books.
And our southern beaches are fantastic, and they have a much shorter season up there. I'd love to see it, but I can almost guarantee I'm going to prefer my southern beaches.
Yeah, I think I will too. But anyway, so we're going to have some lunch, and then we're going to come back and talk about the book a little more. We both did enjoy it. We have lots of conversation in the group about the ending, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And I don't know, who knows what we'll talk about. We might go off on tangents. We're bad to do that.
We like that.
All right. Okay, we're rolling again. All right, so we've enjoyed our lunch, and we're just talking about Elin Hilderbrand's Swan Song, and this apparently is her last book in this series. I did read the other books in the series. Susie did not. But because it's the last book in the series, there's a lot of discussion in the group about the end of the book.
Yes.
Most of the discussion in the group has been about the end of the book. And we kind of both agreed that we think that the character Ed, the police chief, that he's dead. And I'm real sorry about that.
But we all die. We all, eventually.
And we don't know. I mean, obviously we're not the author, but it seems logical to me anyway,
Yeah.
that, you know, the thing is, she's ended her series, and she wouldn't be the first author to kill off
That's
a
right.
main character at the end of a series.
Right. And when I read it, I mean, my very first impression was, well, Ed died, but he had a happy ending, so to speak, because all of his life and all of the things that he had accomplished, enjoyed, his family, went through his mind. And it was, I think she intends it to be a happy, if you forgive the pun, ending. Ending of a life.
I took it to be that, and I was very sad because I really liked Ed.
Yeah.
And I wanted to envision him happily enjoying his retirement. And I personally would have been happier. I'm going to have to write her about this. I'm kidding. I personally would have been happier if we could have imagined Ed happily enjoying his retirement with Andrea and the kids and the grandkids and all that. That would have just been a happier way to end it. But
Yes.
you know, authors get to choose that, and that was not her choice.
That's right. It's her writing, and it's not that he had a tragic ending. You know, it's I think it's written quite well. I mean, I think we are invited to see that the conclusion of life is a summation of all of who we have been, and I'm okay. I mean, it made me sad, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah. The other thing, and somebody mentioned this, and I think it's true. The way the story played out, you know, he had the procedure that was supposed to help,
Yeah.
and then yet he still died a short time later, which I think is not really accurate. It's not typical. I think most people who have that.
And I was troubled a little bit by that, and I was talking to Susan about that. That I think she perhaps needed to build a little more into us not being quite as stunned by it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I was surprised.
Yeah. I think we all were surprised, and many of us were disappointed.
Yeah.
But the story in general, and we were just talking with the English teacher here, who's going to explain to us the type of story that this is, because she's the English teacher.
No, I'm kidding. Well, we were talking about, there are infinite number of stories in the world having been written and still to be written, but there are a finite number of plots in the world. How characters handle those plots and how they interact with one another, that's what makes no story the same as another story. But this is the story, right, of the stranger. In this case, two strangers come to town, and when the strangers come to town, everybody is affected.
Now, I just have to say, these strangers were really, really strange.
They were.
I mean,
they were.
And you know, I don't know. I can't imagine. I just can't. People that act like this, people that are that.
Social climbing.
Well, and that wrapped up in the whole. You know, some of their parties were wild.
They were.
You know, some of the things they were doing and so forth. And you know. That woman coming on to Ed. I mean, and actually several different men. I mean, they were not nice people. Their behavior was reprehensible.
They were not nice people, but they offered so much money. You know, they offered so much glitz and glitter. You know, that it pulled people in. And I suppose there's a lot of truth to that in human nature.
Right.
You know, offer up your yacht. Offer up your pink party or whatever it was, and you'll, you know, but yeah, they were not good people. We are all flawed, but they might have been more flawed than most.
So I was talking to somebody about this, I can't remember who, and they said, you know, she has a lot of adultery in her novels, and I've read quite a few of her books, and it is a recurring theme, adultery. I don't know if that's just something she wanted to explore from a literary standpoint. I guess, you know, authors explore different things for different reasons.
Or she just simply knows that that's high drama.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta got to create that high drama to keep that reader.
Oh, it
turning the
definitely is
page.
high drama. All right, let's see what else we have. We had a lot of comments on the ending.
Yes.
And
Definitely.
and everybody has, a lot of the comments are, how people felt about the ending, and a lot of people were not happy with the ending.
Yeah. And don't want it want it to be the ending that it is.
I really think what it is we loved Ed, and we did not want to let go of Ed, and so we want to believe.
I liked Ed too.
We want to believe that he's still alive out there enjoying retirement. And for those of us like me that want to believe that, there's no reason that we can't go on thinking that way.
Yeah, we really, in a sort of a book like this, the only people we want to see dead are the villains.
Right.
Because we're used to that. Again, it's a plot structure.
Right. And somebody, I think, said that they had heard Ellen say in a different group, somewhere online or in an interview or whatever, that yes, in fact, he died. But because it was not spelled out, really.
And I was telling you that I listened to the interview between Ellen and her narrator on her audiobook, and it was presumed. They talked about the end of the book that was just the presumption that Ed was dead.
That's very sad. I'm going to continue to envision him happily enjoying retirement. I'm going to think they revived him and he was fine, and that's what I'm going to think, because that's what makes me happy.
Was just a near-death experience.
This is escapism, and it was left open to interpretation, and I have interpreted it that way.
There you go. And she's an author, you all know that, right? So she's allowed to rewrite and rethink and imagine in whatever ways.
Thank you, Susie. What else do we have here? Lots of people love the book.
One of the things here is there was some discussion about the dual timeline. And
yes,
some folks seem to have struggled with that, and and that's tricky. It's always tricky.
I think, it felt to me like she did that. Of course, I have no knowledge of any of this, but it seemed like she did that to keep the suspense up, because the suspense was in the the book opens, and the house is burnt down, and Coco is missing, and so the suspense is what happens there.
That's right.
Who set the fire? Is everybody okay?
That's
Is Coco going to be all right?
Yeah, that's your hook.
And that's what pulls you through. And so it felt to me like she had those flash forwards, because now she goes to tell the story. Here's where we are. Here's how we got here.
Yeah.
But instead of just telling that straight through, she pops back in with these updates from now periodically. And I think part of that may have been a device to keep the tension going.
I think it is too. But I think maybe, if it is troublesome, it's probably because when we think of dual timelines, we think of some time in between, years in between, not months in between.
Right. This
was so close together. Yeah. I think that
you're bouncing back and forth between
a few months difference,
or whatever.
Right. And that
I think that can be confusing. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I had that issue to decide recently, and I basically
in your work,
and I did the opposite thing, which might turn out to not be the good thing, I don't know, but I just started with here and then went back, and okay, here's how we got here, and told it straight from point A to point Z or whatever.
And I'm just realizing I'm doing that now in the book I'm working on, and I hadn't intended to.
Right.
But I've got a present day story between the two characters.
Back and forth.
Yes, and now I've got a relationship and a plot developing between these two characters that I hadn't expected. So now I realize I'm going to have a dual timeline. So we'll see if I can pull it off.
I think it's maybe just, I like things to be simple. I like for them to be straightforward. I don't want to have to work for, the flipping back and forth, it can be disorienting to me. Now, I don't mean that about this book. I really enjoyed this book.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't like the flipping back and forth. Okay, so what else about this book?
What else? So she's quite good with the colorful characters. And like I say, this is my first time reading Elin Hilderbrand, but you've got Sharon,
Oh my goodness!
She's quite a memorable
She
character.
is, and I love Blonde Sharon. But I saw
That's
there
right,
was,
Blonde Sharon.
there was some group. I don't remember which group online. Somebody had posted because it wasn't our group, but some of the groups. Somebody had posted, and they said that they were upset because a female character had been identified by her hair color, and the male character had been identified by his profession. So it was chief of police and I can't even say his
about
name.
this book.
And Blonde Sharon, yeah. And I'm like, but that's her name.
She's almost a caricature.
She is,
I mean, that's what
yes.
she's supposed to be.
Well, and there was some interview Ellen did that where she said that she felt like maybe she was Blonde Sharon or something like that. So she might have been making a joke, but the thing is,
I mean, they got Fast Eddie.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, Fast Eddie
they
with
all
his
have these names.
I mean, he's sort of the
with your
antithesis. He's the male counterpart.
But with your friend group, you have these little names sometimes,
Sure.
And so she's Blonde Sharon to differentiate her. I think I'm remembering back from a book in the past. I think there were two Sharons, and this is how they differentiated. This is Blonde Sharon because the other Sharon was not blonde. So Blonde Sharon,
that makes sense.
It's just to keep her straight between the Sharons,
Exactly.
It wasn't a slight. But I saw that and I kind of laughed and I thought,
there's no end to what we can work ourselves up about.
Well,
instead of just enjoying.
Yeah, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters. I always enjoyed this group of characters, the castaways, that she calls them. So it was Ed and Andrea and Phoebe and
the group that plays pickleball.
Well, there's the group that plays pickleball. That's the women. But then there were these couples that were friends. Ed and Andrea. Phoebe and
it's not Jim, is it?
No, hold on a minute. You know what? I can't remember, but I remember that there are several couples.
Yeah, it's the three women.
Yeah,
and their
Andrea
husbands.
And Phoebe.
And then Leslie joins them for their pickleball.
Right.
And Bull, what a name, Bull Richardson.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that was an interesting name, but I think that was a good name for that.
Oh,
character.
it's an excellent name.
Yeah. I'll remember all these characters' names in a little while. It's afternoon. I need a little more caffeine. Anyway.
And I didn't tell her this is decaffeinated too.
Oh no. I need some decaffeine.
I'll give you some.
I need a little hit of caffeine.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Coffee before you hit the road.
Okay. These characters I really enjoyed. I hated to see the story end for this to be the last book in the series. But I do understand that she's working on a new project.
Yes, and that she talked about that in this interview with her narrator too, that she's writing a book with her daughter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know what kind of book.
But it's something different. It's not
exactly.
more Nantucket novels, which, I'll miss them. But,
I know. But sometimes, you got to know when to fold them. I felt like that as a teacher in my last years. I wanted to go out when I was still, at least in my mind, on top of my game.
Right.
Before I appeared as some doddering old, lady who couldn't remember Hamlet's name. So, and there's something to be said for that. She probably, this is a peak, and you want to go out on a high note.
Right. For a series, I think that's true. I think you reach a point where you feel like you need to conclude that series and move on and write something else.
That's right. As you have done with your own work.
Yeah, I mean,
not that you won't go back.
Not that I won't write, and there may be more Liz Talbot, but I kind of reached a point where she was in a good place and I was happy with it, and
you
I just
felt
needed to let them work things out for themselves for a while and go write something else. So I get that. You get to a point where you don't want to get stale. You don't want to feel like.
Well, that's right. You don't want to. Just the same thing as like the metaphor of teaching. You don't want to get tired. I mean, you don't want because you don't want your characters to be tired.
Well, and if the author, and I'm not saying that she was, but if the author is bored by what she's writing because she's written,
so much
about that one location or whatever, so many of that kind of book. if you're bored, your reader's going to be bored.
Exactly.
And so I think maybe,
Yeah.
you know.
You can't get stayed no matter what you're doing.
Okay, all right. So do we have anything else to say about this lovely book?
Nothing, but you all, I hope, will put some comments in when.
Yeah,
for us.
absolutely. Y'all put some comments in if you know, let's talk amongst ourselves in the group. Let's see. Oh, I was just reading more of these comments about the ending. And D. Clark said, interesting how your comments are questioning the ending. Chief Ed died, in my opinion, because that's how Ellen wanted it to end, being that this book is the end of the Nantucket novels. And I have to say, I agree with D.
I do too.
Although.
but you're an author, you're just rewriting.
Yeah, in my mind, yeah. Okay, what else do we have here? I think that's pretty much everything. We just had a lot of discussion about the end. Let's see.
Yeah, that's what most of
The
the pages I have.
Yeah. Somebody wants to see Leslie. Chrissy wants Leslie to be played by Kristen Chenoweth in a movie. I like Kristen Chenoweth. I could see that.
I always love it how, readers, me included, we're always imagining these characters as live humans on the screen,
yeah.
And who would best play it.
Mm-hmm. I always, like when I'm writing, I imagine my characters that way, and so when I'm reading, very often I'm doing the same thing. It's like I have these actors and actresses in my head, and they sort of.
I never do have particular actors and actresses, but I do often imagine that when I'm developing a scene that I'm looking through the camera.
Mm-hmm.
What do I see? What do I hear? And then I, of course, have to imagine the smell. But you know, so it's alive.
Right.
So it's alive. But I have never really imagined particular actors and actresses. That'd be interesting.
That's fun. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in for this month's book discussion.
We enjoyed it.
Next month, July, we're reading Christy Woodson Harvey's A Happier Life. I hope you will all read that and put your thoughts and comments. I'll be talking with Christy later in the month. I think Susan has another obligation, but I'll be talking with Christy.
I'm going to be at a writer's conference during that time, fortunately and unfortunately, because I hate to miss the discussion with Christy. She's a lovely person.
She is. We love Christy, and we're looking forward to having her back in the Lowcountry Book Club. All right. I think that's all for us this time. Y'all take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.